I hope the other 13 programs in the SEC are thanking Vanderbilt for upholding SEC honor in week 0 out on the island in impressive fashion, 63-10. We got Brent Beard here, First Coast News, College Sports Today, and his podcast. You got to check out Second Helpings, emphasis on the SEC Second Helpings podcast. Brent, how you doing today?
Well, Mark, I'm doing well. It's exciting to be at game week. I know week 0 was more game week 2, and by the way, as you mentioned, congrats to Vandy. They scored more points in the 60s in that game. They usually do in a month. So that was nice to see. And that they could actually have a pretty good September with Elon and Wake without Hartman at quarterback. And then you've got Northern Illinois, which could be difficult for them, but they could have a pretty good September before they go to Tuscaloosa. But we've got 2 games Thursday with Tennessee and Missouri. We've got most of the conference on Saturday, and then frankly a game that's really wonderful for us being here in Jacksonville, Florida, is Florida State being up the road, and Sunday night in New Orleans with LSU. So Mark, if it was up to me, if I was commissioner of football, I would have Thursday through Monday every week, but we know that's not possible. So we're going to enjoy it regardless.
That has become the domain of the NFL.
Yeah, unfortunately.
In the last couple of decades. All right, let's focus first on Thursday night. We don't need to spend a ton of time, but Tennessee, Missouri, less about the outcome on the scoreboard, more likely than not. We'll see. Sometimes there's some tricky week 1 affairs, but more so in terms of Missouri performance, Tennessee performance. What are you looking for?
You want to see from Missouri what Brady Cook is going to be doing and how he plays. And my goodness, Mark, the Missouri defense has got to be better, doesn't it? I mean, they were not able to stop anybody last year. How do they replace Tyler Beatty, who I think is one of the more undervalued running backs in the league? And game 1 actually leads into a bigger game in game 2 with Kansas State. So that's going to be fascinating to see what Missouri does when they're in the league. There are actually better matchups the second week than there are the first from top to bottom. That's interesting how that is playing out. And as far as Tennessee is concerned, will the blitzkrieg on offense continue? Now, Brew McCoy, the USC athlete, receiver, has been deemed eligible. So that's going to be fascinating to see if he is up to speed and how much that he will play. And I think the same thing for Tennessee. You've got Tennessee going to Pitt next week. Doesn't it help Tennessee that Pitt plays West Virginia? And JT Daniels, by the way, named the starting quarterback for West Virginia. It's a nice quarterback battle with he and Slovis on Thursday night. So those are 2 that you certainly will certainly be watching, keeping up with them. But Mark, I think for Missouri and Tennessee, it's more that they set the stage for week 2, even more than it is for week 1, is it not?
Yeah. They should be in good shape on the scoreboard, again, setting themselves up for big non-conference affairs in week 2. Alabama taking on a Utah State team that I would say against 75% of the country would be a scary opponent for week 1. They're coming off a nice Mountain West Conference championship, but as a 41-point underdog, Alabama's just a different deal, of course. The matchup that I think is possibly a sneaky good one, and maybe I'm putting too much on what we saw last year, of course, is Memphis and Mississippi State playing in Starkville.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Look, I normally don't go in this direction, but let's just be honest. State got hosed last year on that kickoff. I mean, a high school referee could have figured that out more than those guys did, and that really put the State behind the 8 ball. So, I mean, I don't know how Mike Leach, the State coach, will remind them of that and be creative about it, but I'm guessing that he probably will. But I would be with you on that. I mean, I think that is a sneaky good game in a lot of ways. In a game that State really needs to show. I love what Arnett has done for that defense. Forbes and the secondary is really good. Their defense at State is very undervalued, isn't it, Mark? I mean, they get all the credit with Will Rogers, dinking and dunking down the field, but they've got some real bona fide players defensively who've been very impressive. So I like State in that game. I normally don't go with any kind of revenge factor because I think that's worth maybe a play at the most in the grand scheme of the game. But I just think this is a game that they will be more than determined to get off to a good start and be able to win this game. So I think that's going to be very important.
And then a game that I certainly wouldn't consider under the radar by any stretch, especially for college football junkies like ourselves, but for the national sports fan that's focused on Columbus, Ohio, and Atlanta, Georgia, and about 3 different destinations, this Arkansas-Cincinnati matchup intrigues me as well.
Yeah, KJ Jefferson, you want to know how he's going to be with the loss of the weight. And I love this Arkansas team, frankly. I really admire their schedule and what they've done here with this non-conference schedule. And I know you have talked about it, but they are going to be this sets up another huge game because it's a conference game because they play South Carolina and Fayetteville next week. And then these non-conference games that they have also got that's coming up. I mean, BYU in October at Provo. I mean, who knows what the weather is going to be in a situation like that. So that's going to be fun to see, I think, where that goes. Drew Sanders in Alabama defensively. Catalon is back. They've got 4 guys coming back on the line of scrimmage and the offensive line. I like their running backs. I mean, Arkansas could really be they could be extremely good and still end up 9-3 or 8-4 because of their schedule.
Absolutely. The SEC West continues to be a gauntlet, and I think more so the last couple of years going into this season than it was previously because there was always a soft spot. It's been Arkansas for a long time.
Right.
It's been Mississippi State or Ole Miss at times, but there's nobody there. I would even argue that Auburn could jump into another conference in another division, send them to the ACC Coastal, and they may win the thing.
Oh, I agree with that totally. I mean, we've just seen a situation where, in the West, you've got LSU picked as far down as 5th. Now, I think LSU's going to end up 2nd in the West. Frankly, people forget, as I like to say, LSU has dudes everywhere, and they continue to do that. Kelly knows what he's doing. Brian Kelly. They've got to figure out the quarterback situation, and they will. John Emery's got to get going again. He's going to be suspended for, I think, the first couple of games. Booty used to be Boutte, but he said it's Booty. And wide receiver is a star within himself. So, that's going to be a fascinating game. But no, I'm with you. You almost put the teams in the West in a hat and draw them out after Alabama.
I've got a Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Arkansas logjam in second place behind Bama is what I'm looking at. But who knows? They could be tied for last and still be 3 of the top 25 teams in the country. Looking at a game that you're going to be covering there in Gainesville in the Swamp, this is the first time that Florida has played the Pac-12 since the 80s, a Freedom Bowl game against Washington. This is the first time Utah's played the SEC in, I'm going to guess, the Sugar Bowl game against Alabama in 2009. I'll have to rack my memory for any other more recent affairs for the Utah Utes. It's an intriguing matchup, the type of matchup that I would like to see more often in college football, the Pac-12, the SEC getting together. Not a neutral site game, a home game, of course, for the Gators.
I'm looking forward to being there and being able to cover this game. More excitement for this game, and I can't tell you when for Florida. Obviously in Jacksonville, that their Gators are probably the number one college team in this area, so they should be loud and proud on Saturday night. But look, I'm still favoring Utah to win this game. I hear this heat, humidity stuff. I get that, but Utah's beyond that. They're in shape. They'll know what to do in this situation. Cam Rising is really good. They've got a really good running game. 17 starters coming back on a team that really should have beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And I mean everybody, Mark, has got Utah in the top 10. Now, again, a lot of questions with Florida. Billy Napier's first game, I think he's done a lot of things right. Goodness, just a few weeks ago, they were 29th in recruiting and rivals. Now they're 9th. The top 10 is amazing. That may be top 5 recruiting class before it's over. I wouldn't be surprised about that. Questions, but pretty average receivers. They need Justin Shorter and some guys like that to step up. I think that's going to be very important. Ricky Pearsall, the kid they brought in from Arizona State's going to be important for them. He had a foot injury. He's better now. Tight end groups is okay. Zipper is one of the guys that I think that they really like, but he needs to step up. But the strength for this team, Montrell Johnson at running back, who comes over from Louisiana, Lorenzo Lingard, transfer from Miami. Those are guys who they're going to be dependent upon. They like the offensive line. Osiris Torrance from Louisiana is a real plus for them too. Now, so the strength of this team, when you're looking at questions at quarterback with Anthony Richardson, who could be lightning in a bottle, or he can have an average game, but we don't know. I think they're going to lean on the running game with their defense too. Is going to be impressive. Ventrell Miller is back. Amari Burney is back. And that in the bottom in the back of that defense, this thing's been a field goal in the point spread, no more than 2 or 3 since probably January or something like that. So I think it's one of the best games in the entire nation. And again, week 1 sets up another important week 2 for Florida because they've got Kentucky coming in, maybe without Chris Rodriguez. We're not real sure about that yet. But when you've got a back that runs for 1,200 yards on any given year with that potential, and he doesn't play, that's a problem. I know Smoke in the backfield is really good. Will Levis is really good. They don't have Wan'Dale Robinson. He's in the NFL. Again, what you see is week 1 setting up even a better week 2, or maybe more important. But yes, this Utah-Florida game to me is probably the most important game in the league.
Oregon, Georgia, Bulldogs an overwhelming favorite. The 2 obvious narratives, storylines of this game is Dan Lanning is a major component in leading Georgia to a first national championship in 42 years, takes the head coaching job at Oregon. And then, of course, Bo Nix, who got his college career started with a last-second touchdown pass to defeat Oregon, is now the Ducks quarterback and has faced Georgia now for a 4th time. We believe he's going to be the starting quarterback. There's no reason not to, although it's not been officially announced.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the guy. And the problem is Bo Nix is 0-3 against Georgia. So, I think he'll be 0-4 by the time Saturday night is over. And the thing with Bo is, do you get good Bo or do you get bad Bo? Bad Bo is running around trying to make something happen and virtually drawing plays in the dirt. Good Bo is winning on the last second in his first start not that long ago. Dan Lanning obviously knows Georgia. But again, this is a roster game. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Oregon's got Oregon's got good players. Cristobal left them with good players, but Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State, Clemson have the best rosters in the nation. Oregon's not among those. Again, the neutral site game's amusing, frankly, as you mentioned. But again, I don't think Georgia's going to miss much of a beat. I think Georgia, Mark, goes undefeated with that schedule they've got. Kentucky in November may be their toughest situation unless it's Florida and Jacksonville. I don't think Auburn's is got the roster to beat Georgia at this point. But, I mean, it's an intriguing game. Georgia's got a lot of running backs banged up, and they've got to get them healthy. Stetson Bennett will be fine. Defensively, I think they will be fine. Look, Georgia's had like 3 to 5 years of top 3. I don't mean top 5. I mean top 3 recruiting classes. They're not going anywhere. They've got kids stacked up like cordwood there. And Kelly Ringo coming back, Jalen Carter coming back. So I have no doubt that Georgia, again, is going to be very good. I'm glad they are playing Oregon. I think that helps them in this situation. They've got Samford next week. They've got an important game with South Carolina in a couple of weeks. But again, on paper, it's an intriguing game. But I do think by the time it's over, Georgia wins comfortably by a couple of touchdowns.
Brent, one of the great benefits to week 1 is that we get these isolated games on Thursday. There's a few good ones nationally, but then Sunday and Monday night, isolated games that you can focus on. Okay, I'm just watching this game, because that's about the only downside to a college football Saturday is there's too many games to watch, and I'm like trying to watch 5 games at the same time. But Sunday night, we're going to have LSU and Florida State. We just got an indication from you of how you feel Brian Kelly's going to do in his first year. Florida State had a scrimmage game that they passed all the tests, but at the same time, we will find out a lot about their running game against a real front 7.
Yeah, and that running game really played well against Duquesne. Three rushers for over 100 yards, first time in their history. That's amazing when you think about all the backs for Florida State that they've had. Jordan Travis, I thought he did okay. This Wilson kid, who's 6'7", if they can keep him healthy, I think can make a real difference for them. Toafila, their running back, I think is really good. That's going to make a huge difference for them. The people I've talked to at Florida State have said their offensive line actually is decent. Now, that's a lot better than terrible and atrocious. And what we mean by that is they've actually got backups where if they go out of the game, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to lose. Every game last year where the starters played the whole game on offensive line, they won. And when the starters went out, they lost. So just like Loan to put that together. But see, this is the importance of this game for Florida State. I think number one, I don't think they're going to win the game. They don't have the roster to win the game and beat LSU. I mean, they can certainly make it close, and that would help them. But Mark, what I think the importance of this game is they get a measure of who they are, because they go to Louisville in mid-September on a Friday night, and that's a game they've got to win. Those are games they have to win. Those are 50-50 toss-up games, and they've lost those games in the past. They've got to be able to turn that around. But again, as far as Sunday night is concerned, another quote-unquote neutral site game in New Orleans for LSU. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Probably Jaden Daniels, but we've also heard some good things about Nussmeier. Miles Brennan obviously has left. John Emery, eventually he's going to play, we hope, maybe like game 3 at running back, but he's been suspended during that time. We mentioned Boutte a few minutes ago, and since we mentioned it, we won't go into great detail. But look, the thing you mentioned about this, I think is important. Mark, we should really have multiple games on Labor Day weekend on Sunday, because the next day is Monday, and most people are off work. You can travel back on Monday. But we really ought to have half a dozen games on Sunday of Labor Day weekend, and you get a little bit of a break. So I'm excited to see this game also. But again, ramifications are very important, particularly for teams like Florida State. Stay healthy, stay in the game, get some confidence and momentum. And for LSU, that will be interesting to see where the quarterback's going to be. Pardon my furry friend here, who decided to make a quick visit here and to say hello. But
We've got a co-analyst there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do they have any predictions for us?
Yeah, well, if he hangs around, well, if I gave him a treat, he probably would. Him being a cat, any tigers, cougars, or whatever, he'd probably be for those. So, but anyway, appreciate him making a cameo appearance today. But I'm with you. I'm excited about the Sunday night game.
Absolutely. And you make a good point about the opportunities here without the NFL. Of course, starting the next week is to showcase the sport. You can showcase the sport. You own the weekend.
Right.
You might as well fill those noon and 3:30 spots with a couple games. And again, not overload us necessarily, but make very strong national games in those, maybe just one in each time slot. Because then the other downfall to this is that if it's a bad game, if LSU Florida State's 31-3 at half, then everyone's like, okay, that's all we got. We're done.
Sure.
I don't want to watch the rest of this. And we potentially have that on Monday night with Clemson and Georgia Tech.
Absolutely. Well, and let me say this too, and this is a sermon on another day, and I'll be brief on this. To me, the problem is that college football is just surrendered Thursday night to the NFL, and they should never do that because look, just the converse is what you just said. Some of these NFL Thursday night games are dog games too. I mean, they're over or they're boring or whatever. And some of these games obviously are going to be on Amazon. Not everybody has Amazon. As a matter of fact, I would be willing to bet. I don't know the numbers, Mark. I'm just throwing this out, but I bet at least half the nation doesn't have Amazon, and the ones who do probably don't even know how to get it. Who are over 50, by the way. But the amusing thing is, I just don't see why college has given that up. There ought to be 2 or 3 good games on Thursday night. I mean, for college, there's better games on Friday night than there are on Thursday night. So all I'm saying is don't totally surrender to the NFL on Thursday night because they have some bad games and better college games would make a big difference.
Brent Beard, First Coast News, College Sports Today, and please check out his podcast, Second Helpings, SEC, Second Helpings. Where's the best place to find that, Brent?
I think if you just kind of either YouTubed or Google, Spotify, any of those would probably be able to get it. But we do one on a weekly basis. We've enjoyed it. We try to keep it within about half an hour. We know people's time is limited. And we understand that, but we try to we pretty much preview all the games and get some of the highlights of it and so forth. So, but all in all, we have a lot of fun with it and always enjoy our segment to Mark and being able to discuss SEC is going to be a big year this year. I still think chalk. I think Bama and Georgia are going to be in Atlanta. I won't all be surprised if Bama and Georgia are in the playoffs too, in a situation probably the reverse of last year with Alabama and Georgia. So, but look, the season's here, brother, and we're excited. And right now, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, I would like to be the guy to be able to say, you know what, Kentucky's going to sneak through, or Minnesota's going to sneak through, or Pitt's going to sneak through and make the playoffs, but I just don't see it. All right, Brent, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
My pleasure, brother. Take care. Enjoy Thursday through Monday. Oh, if we could have that every week, that'd be wonderful, wouldn't it?